It's showtime, and we are starting on time. All right, Omniverse, what is going on, you folks? Welcome. We're going to be having a conversation about a construction problem we must solve. And I have the fortune of being up here sharing the screen with Mr. Brian Winningham and Thomas Lamay. And they, for whatever reason, I must owe some huge favors, allowed me to be a part of kind of this release. There's you set up, so Brian, you shared a link the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday or today. You shared a link about a piece that you put together. I think you and Thomas collaborated on it, and it's a piece of a bigger thing. So Brian, would you mind letting the Omniverse know what's happening? What is going on?
Yeah, Thomas and I are writing a book, and I can't remember exactly how he described it. He described it better than I did, actually. We are writing a book about solving problems and leadership at the foreman level, because we don't think that there's a lot of support there. And the book we're writing is a business novel. So we've written it as it's not fact, it's fiction. So, it's not a true story. There's a lot of truth to it, and a lot of truth in it, from both of us, a lot of truth that we've lived in it. But yeah, so, we see a gap, and we've started putting together some stuff, and we're using the systems and tools that are sort of available to us from the U.S. military in quite a few instances. So, there's some systems there that they use that, they're probably the greatest leadership training organization that the United States has ever seen, the military. I mean, they have it down to doing it by the numbers. They're doing it by rote. So there's some stuff to learn there, and it needs to be adapted for what we're doing and for what we are. And yeah, so there.
Awesome. So Miss Cody, thank you for joining in and supporting. She says, love the business novel concept. And so I want to ask for clarity. Folks out there, let us know you're here. Give us some love so that we can know that we're not talking into the abyss. Cody, thank you for supporting us.
Yeah.
You mentioned for Foreman. Why for Foreman?
Because that's a place where both of us have lived. It's a place where I think both of us really started. Thomas and I both started in the field as you did, and it's a gap that we see in the industry. There's really not a lot of attention paid. Someone like yourself is doing it, but there's not a lot of attention paid to really equipping our foremen and the people who do jobs at that level with tools that would help them be better leaders, that would help them understand what they could do to make their jobs better, et cetera, et cetera.
It is the hardest, most unawarded like the people who are most seen and both unseen at the same time are the people who lead these crews, or we call it a small unit, and that comes from military doctrine, but it's a leader who would lead a crew of maybe 5 to 7 people. And Jesse, that doesn't exist in any kind of training or any kind of material in a big way. A lot of this is like process improvement on a corporate level, or hey, you need to get your boss to go buy this software thing, or hey, you need to convince this whole group of people, or we need to like rewrite our contracts. Like, no, where do you start? You can start by just picking up pieces of trash and arranging them like chew cans and string. We got a story about that. And it's like, you want a legit logistics plan? We already know how to do it, and you could do it. You don't even need Bluebeam. or any other kind of software. You just need some
I
sticks
agree.
and some dirt. So what we're trying to say is these are actions and these are stories and it's fiction, but all of these are real stories. What we're doing is protecting the innocent.
I love it.
Ourselves.
Yeah, and we let, and I wanted to write. It was just, I don't know. This is freaking my idea, but like the creativeness and the excellent writer. The reason why I selected Brian to be my partner is he's an excellent writer. I'm just kind of like insane. Both I've been proven by doctors to have some mental problems. So, but like let's serve.
I have a VA rating, sir.
Yeah, there you go. So what we wanted to do is serve a group of people who are almost invisible in our industry, but like so much outnumber people who like most of the leadership books are written for, like general contractors or senior superintendents. Not to say that those books aren't excellent. Listen, I love those books. Those people who are like the forefathers, people I deeply respect, but no one ever gave me a book that was like, Thomas, this is how you like set up a string line.
Yeah.
And I wish they did. So
or this is how you set up your Connex. You know, this is how you set up your Connex for being productive with your crew. You need space there to train them. You need space there for your crew to be able to have a place that belongs to y'all. Plus, you need places for your work stuff, and it needs to be organized and not some hole like you see in that picture that we have in the story that we published.
Yeah. So y'all have my commitment to review it from a damaged, warped, and traumatized Foreman. You know, the one thing that I absolutely hated, and still it's kind of shaped the way I do my work in helping trade foremen and general contractors, is I could not stand the shiny boots coming out to tell me how to do my job better, when what they were really doing was telling me how to do things so that their job was easier. And so there's a dramatic difference. I had was part of a situation where I put some awesome training together, and it continued after I left, but there was some feedback about the way it was delivered. And finally, one of the team members said, well, the issue was he was delivering the same content, but he wasn't delivering it so that it could help me in my job. He was delivering it so that I could comply and help him on his job. And so I think that's really important. So I'm gonna keep an eye out for that. Now, I want to ask this, and maybe it'll inform, or maybe you've already addressed it, because one of the biggest pain points that I experienced and observed of getting into the foreman role, going from an installer, top-notch, fast, awesome installer, to now I'm leading people, was the abrupt adjustment I had to make to delayed gratification. I went from being able to look back every day and see what I accomplished to all of a sudden I had to wait, and I had no idea how long to wait to see the impact of my efforts. And it was so hard, defeating, irritated. So is there something in there to like deal with that?
We've got a little bit of something in the story where the protagonist, Mr. Stevens,
Okay.
which will be the same guy through it all, talks about how he learned in the military by taking his crew out, his fire team out every day when he was in that position, and going through PT and seeing them improve over time. And we talk about that. But yes, okay. I think that we don't fully address what you're talking about, but yes. Yeah, we talk about that, which he understands because of the push that he gets to look back at his military training to use, for what he's doing now, and not to like forget all that stuff. That was one of the things that he started to remember.
Yeah. Look, Lance, you got Lance all fired up. Lance says, yes, I didn't miss this. So, folks, if you're just popping in now, Thomas and Brian are sharing with us about the business novel for Foreman that they're working on. They've been working on. And so heads up, it's coming. It's specifically focused or targeted at trade foremen. But like, y'all didn't come out soft, right? The link that you posted recently.
We have my co-author is a freaking Army Ranger. So we go right after it. This first chapter is, and I want to like, Jesse,
violence of action, baby.
We built this book. This book is built with Scrum, with visual planning. We have a mural board. It looks like a beautiful mind. Like it's got
notes everywhere, pictures everywhere.
And I call it, like, I do this in my daily work. We bring details together and, notes, and I'm doing this tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. with a geotechnical engineer. We do this operation because it freaking works.
Mm-hmm.
And like you do, so I'm like, why do anything else? Let's do the same thing. And it's like, why are we messing around? And so we started the story. It's like, hey, we should like encourage people to like do self-care, and this is what I sound like, by the way. We should encourage people to like, like take care of themselves. And Brian's like, no. He started writing this chapter, and it, like, Jesse, I read it and I was like blown away. I was like, this throw away my idea. Like, this was get that out of here.
But we didn't
roll in with this. Yeah. Okay, we moved it. We slid it down to.
We didn't throw away your idea because, and honestly, Jesse, he's being a little facetious because I can't tell you what parts that I wrote and what parts that he wrote out of this. I really can't.
That's the best part. That is the best part, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to say that, and thank you for mentioning that. It's just the best part because you can't tell. It's like a freaking pull plan. You can't, because it's all blurry. And it's like nuanced, and if I didn't do my little paragraph, it didn't inspire Brian to write him. And then like I'm just curious about all aspects of the military because I'm just a civilian that's curious. And so it perhaps like maybe deep, I know it, some of the stories like uncovered some deeply emotions that got uncovered. Especially when we got into like sitting on airplanes, definitely. Because my experience sitting on airplanes and yours probably much different, especially the waiting part. But all of that combined, I think it just builds upon itself. And these things, these ideas, they work. And we talk about like you need a reinforcing effect and a feedback effect. Well, this is proof of that works. And it's like, it's not a big deal. Like you just need to do it. And how do you start? You just go. You start. Get a mural board, or you get a freaking whiteboard. Yeah. But you can't tell who wrote it. And nice. Our main character is former military and pretty crazy, like into visual stuff.
Yeah.
And into organizing stuff. So it's like, who is the character again? Like you can't tell. So I think that's really cool.
Nice. And so, Brian, you mentioned violence of action. The first story, am I getting it right? Is the first story that's going to be in this book is the story you shared in the link that you posted today, and it's in the on the LinkedIn in the comments of today's live stream. Help if for those people that didn't do their homework and pre-read, what's so special about this first story, or what should they expect?
So
What's the warning label on it?
The title is a construction suicide. So we start from there. The scene opens with Emilio Stevens, who is our protagonist for this book. He's the foreman that we're talking about, staring at his phone, having just received and finished a phone call. And the phone call was that Alberto had killed himself, had died by suicide. And it's a Sunday evening in spring. It's beautiful outside. You know, there's starting to be some warm currents of air, and he doesn't see any of that. In fact, because of what just happened, he starts to have a flashback to his time in the military. And from that flashback, we see him start to figure out and say, whoa, I know what's going on with me and I know what I need to do. So he goes and he sits down, he opens up his meditation app and he sits down, he starts doing some breathing exercises. And, you know, then we just progress in time from there. You know, the next day he has to inform his crew, all of his crew about what happened. And, you know, Alberto's a well-loved member of the crew, you know, helps everybody out, always a great guy, you know, and then from there we go to the funeral and, you know, we meet Antonia, his wife, and there's two little kids too that we don't get to meet, but I mean, they're there, you know, I mean, the costs of suicide go way beyond, you know, just the person who lost their life. You know, I mean, it's just that trauma just continues on, you know, and that's kind of what you get there.
When you work in our industry long enough, an unfortunate truth is this will happen. I think all of us have this story.
Yep, got a few.
Right? Probably each one of us multiple. Myself definitely multiple. And so that schedule that we share, it's like a day and then it flashes forward and it flashes forward. If you've been associated with somebody's death, that body is still that person. They're not alive anymore, but it's like you still have to think of that body as that person. And it's like you have to lay that person to rest. And you have to like think about what are you going to do? You have to move them around and you have to organize things and you have to think about these things all while grieving. And so we wanted to put a timetable to it because there is all of the sudden the rest of the world fades away and you just get into this, okay, the funeral's on Friday and I have to do this. And it's like the visitation. And then it's the you know, you do the thing and you lay them in the ground and you move on. But then there's like other steps that happen and you have to go through that process. And it's like a series of scenes, especially while it's happening to you. Right. You're just kind of experiencing life in scenes because it's so emotional. We wanted to really, if you reread this, if anybody hasn't read it, read it in that frame of mind. I read it Friday morning and I literally wept. Because you immediately go to that situation where you're like, it's Friday. Okay. What do I have to do in between now and then? And it's like, you still got to get in wall signed off. The building inspector is going to show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we talk about that in the next section too, about how the GC doesn't even give a shit. You know, they don't care. You know, it's like, when are you going to replace him? Where's the replacement? What's going on? Where are we at with replacing this guy?
Yep.
You know, and it's like, screw you. You know, that's Emilio's like, I'm not even talking to you about this.
Right. So why did you decide to start with the suicide? Like, why was that significant or important?
The catalyst for change. Right. And the more that we were talking about writing this, and it wasn't the first chapter, but, you know, Construction Suicide Prevention Week is right now, started today. And this is the reason that change becomes possible for this whole crew. is because of the changes that they go through with this. It's a catalyst for them that says, you know what, things aren't going to continue to be the same. The wake up call, I don't know, but that's how it came for us and how we felt about it.
So when you say the same, what does that mean?
What do you mean the same? What did I say?
So you're saying a catalyst for change, right? There's a need to change the way they're doing things, change the way they're approaching things. And I'm assuming there's a connection to that change that you're illustrating throughout the rest of the book and the suicide.
There will be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because the suicide is what gives them the impetus to change. They start by making a change to their diets, by getting rid of the energy drinks right there in the, in this story, in this part of the story. And I'm seeing more and more of that. I mean, but I challenge anybody that's listening in anywhere to go to any convenience store at 5:30 or 5:30 a.m. in the morning and look at all the construction workers in there and what are they buying?
Yep.
And those things are just so terrible for you. And all the other bad decisions we make, going home and having 6 beers or 8 beers so that we can get to sleep every night because we drank all those monsters all day. And it's a cycle that just continues to get more vicious and more vicious as you go through it. It's really bad for your health.
So the catalyst for change. So if you think about any type of catalyst, like adding a catalyst to lacquer, it makes the characteristics of that chemical different immediately. And so that catalyst to change, we're talking about 56 people out of 100,000 people every year die by suicide in United States.
In our industry.
Every year. So 56. There's 11 million people. If you on the books, by the way, on the books. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. To think about residential, there's probably some off the books. Let's just say there's 13 million people in construction. If you do that math, you're talking about tens of thousands of people every year dying. And not by accident or by a disease. This is by a mental illness or injury or some kind of imbalance. It's just that person's outcome seems so grim that the choice is I choose death over any other outcome. And that's such a terrible choice. But I will tell you this. And I've felt this, and I wanted to say this publicly, that all of the things that are being this week are being shared about self-care and finding help and, taking care of yourself and dialing 988 in times of crisis. I've experienced a panic attack. 988 is the last thing that you are thinking about. What are you thinking about during a panic attack? Like, you're looking at the floor and you're like, you're not thinking about anything. You're losing consciousness. And so, like, what we have to do to be a catalyst of change is all of those things that we're talking about this week got us to now. That got us to now. And that is all amazing and good. And we have to do that. Like, that got us to now. Awareness. We now have employee resource groups available. There's like all kinds of money and resources being spent on this. The government's involved now, right? Like, oh, this is all good. But now it's like to go even further and to start driving that down. It's like we have to be exponentially more energy. And we can't just go on, hey, what did we do last year? Let's just do that again and expect that the results will change. So our thing is, what can we do? We can do a whole lot in our industry from like my seat. I can do a lot. from making a lot like the world, like the workers' lives better with better business deals and better smart logistics and making more time in schedules and saying no to unrealistic demands. But if I'm a foreman, these aren't options that are delivered to me. I don't even have a seat at the table. But what I do have a seat at the table is what I spend my energy on, what I actually spend my energy on. And what foremen really can spend their energy on is really smart things. And those smart things we give people in this book, we give them a guide, and it's not a comprehensive guide, but it is some really damn good tips and tricks. And it reads in a systematic way where it starts with this like shocking story. It's like, damn, Alberto died by suicide. And like you read into this chapter and there's this feeling of hopelessness.
Yep.
It's like, what do you want us to do? And then like the third or fourth section about energy drinks that Brian was saying, they say it again. If you read it, they're like, this is just jet fuel, boss. Or like he's holding 3 cans. And I wrote that part because I actually saw it. I saw a equipment operator walking out of a gas station in Georgia here. And I was like, it was 3 peach monsters. The peach guy. Hey, I'm in Georgia. It's peach. And I was like,
of course.
I was like, dude, nice. And he's like, this is the breakfast of champions. And I was like, those all yours? He's like, I'll have these done by 9 a.m. Like he was proud.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's got to be it. And
I mean, before there were energy drinks, Mountain Dew, 6-pack a day, baby, easy.
Yeah. And so, but in that section, even there, they still feel hopeless. We're talking things that they're purchasing. And if you kind of read into that, it's like they look at the label and they're like, it's just like Special Forces guy on the label. And it's like a video game and it's really cool. And it's like aggressive language and all this. It's like, this is focused at males.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like he thinks back to his time in Iraq. I think it's Iraq, where he's in the desert. And it was like, it was so important for operational effectiveness to like be hydrated. It was so important that his officer was like on his case about checking the canteens. And I think this probably instilled some emotions from Brian here about water and being in the military. But anyways, like it's important, and it's important to be operationally ready to be hydrated. But why isn't it important to be operationally ready if you're operating a tower crane and drinking a white monster? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So we wanted to address that. And they also addressed the hypocritical nature of it too. Like they were like, Emilio's the leader. You're like, dude, you're buying this for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he's like,
and they do.
Right.
I mean, you see the foreman. I mean, I see trucks pull up all the time at the gas station. Foreman gives the kid $50 to go in and get all the monsters for everybody or whatever they are.
Just the whole rack. Just
yeah. Whatever it made me think of, it's like similar to the general contractor that cuts their bid to work for a freaking horrible, miserable owner. Right? 3% would be pretty, like, be good. And working with this one owner is going to beat the hell out of you, and it's going to cause you to beat the hell out of the trades and beat them down on pricing and go against your values and mission, and you'll still do it, right? Like you're taking the thing. The same thing with trades. Trade leadership will, at the cost of the quality of life of their people, take work with bad deals, with bad customers. And so what I like is that it's analogous, right? Oh, boy's going to go buy these power drinks, energy drinks for his people. he's doing something that it's not serving them very well. So he's complicit and maybe just not aware of it. Now you mentioned the word hopeless.
Yeah.
Hopeless. And since it's what is it, Suicide Awareness Month in construction all of a sudden, or is that a national
Well, it's
thing?
the whole country. It's suicide awareness. September is Suicide Awareness Month for everyone.
Okay.
This week is Suicide Prevention Week for construction.
Got it. Thank you. So the hopelessness, I'd like to hear a little bit about the hopelessness in construction, how this book can contribute or impact that in a positive way. Like what's y'all's thoughts on that?
And that's where, that's to me where I see suicide happens, is when someone gets to a place where they don't feel like there's any hope. Right.
Yep.
And that's a momentary feeling. We don't understand that always when we're in that feeling, and it's a horrible, vicious cycle that happens when you get that way, because it just compounds, and feeling that way makes other bad things happen, and it's a whole deal, and it cascades, kind of like what Thomas was saying. And I think just this chapter offers some hope, even though it is heavy, and it gets to the end, I feel like, the last part of it where he talks to the plumbing foreman, and it wasn't much, but it was a start, and they go across the street and get coffee, and the guys, they're going to go talk about it and find out, what's going on, and because it's connection, right? I mean, that's where hopelessness dies, is when there's no connection. Or lives, is where there's no connection, where people don't connect. And that's what we're wanting to show, is how to connect. When we first started talking about this, we talked about the trade, trade saving this whole project. And we've moved on from that because we don't see that as realistic in real life. So, when this book gets done, that they won't necessarily save the project. I don't think that's a realistic goal for a trade partner to even have, to be honest, because they're just one part of all of it, right? So I think we're not creating superheroes here. We're wanting to show things as realistically as we can, and hopefully some of this is, most of what we wrote rang true for folks, and I hope it did.
Yeah. So the part that got me, well, I can't remember what character was, the name was, but he was like, man, oh boy, I think Emilio gave me his tools on Friday, and I thought he just wanted me to hold them. Like, the signs were there, and he missed it. And it took me back to like a real, very similar situation where a friend was giving the signals and I missed them.
God, I'm so sorry.
The hopelessness, right? Like, I've experienced it. You may have too. And like, I want to put this out there. So if somebody's watching the replay or somebody's watching it live now, like, the most important thing, and really the only thing I can do with whatever I'm going to say, is signal to you that you are not alone. But when you're in the middle of it, Thomas, kind of like you were talking about, when you're having a panic attack, you're not thinking, what's the best resource to reach out to right now? You're not thinking that, right? And so I've been in a situation where the project is a freaking disaster. Everybody's contributed to the disaster. And all you hear, all I experienced for days and nights and weeks on end was failure. I was swimming in failure. Nobody wanted to, like, there wasn't time or any interest in me sharing how I felt. What the only conversations anybody wanted to have is what the hell I was going to do to get better. Period. And I know I wasn't the only one. And there were times that I drank myself to sleep. There were times that I had to have a drink just to calm my mind. Now, I say had to have a drink because that's the way I coped with it. But that misery, that hopelessness got bigger and bigger and darker and darker. And I wasn't far from me saying, it's never going to end. I can't take it anymore. I can't stuff it anymore. And making a decision. Now, I made different decisions. Luckily, I made different decisions. But like I said a little while ago, reading that segment where old boy hands his tools to somebody else, and that somebody else is saying, holy hell, I didn't know. Like, how did I miss that? And so, again, folks, I'm sharing that just so that you know you're not alone. And if you're in the misery, in the muck, I'm pretty damn well. I'll tell you this: you can reach out to me. I'm happy to hear you out and at least listen to you. I think both Thomas and Brian are open for that. But I want to, like, for real, have y'all experienced that hopelessness that got you close to saying no mas?
We oh God, the picture on the website. I have a Connex. It's a different one, but the theme it's hit me so hard. It's the open Connex, but it's kind of empty and it's dingy. But then you look around, there's nothing else. There's no people around. Like, for me, I would go hide. When I would feel low, like at my lowest, I would go hide, being like, I don't want anybody to see me have this situation. I used to work in high rises. A place to hide would be like an electrical room, or if there's electricians around, go into a stairway, because usually if you're in a stairway, you can hear people come. No one really can sneak up on you because you can hear them coming. That's why I would go in there. Like, if I was crying or something, that I could get myself together by the time they rounded the corner, or at least like shoot out the door. Yeah, there you go. But here's the thing. So that lower right, you see the coffee cup? The coffee cup.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be like, you set it there and you would go in, and it just hit me so hard. That's why I felt really, I've never seen this, but like, I know I can feel the aura. And then if you see like the wet paper or the wet cardboard, that got drug in there. So it doesn't rain inside it doesn't rain inside of Connexes. I got drug in. And so can you imagine the smell, like the mildew? There's not an air condition in there. And it's dark, and that thing gets shut up at night. So there's not air moving. Those places, those are the hidden places on job sites where people suffer.
Can you hear? Can you hear it? I can hear it. I can hear the doors opening on it. I mean,
yeah, the
loud,
like the ungreased hinges,
loud creak. Yeah,
yeah. It's unsettling just looking at it, but I want people to know that this is okay. Like, this is real. These exist all over the world. These places,
and worse.
Yes, and definitely worse. We're regulated in the United States, thankfully. Not places very close to where I am physically right now are not. Just to the south of us, right? So like those places, you don't even have an opportunity to hide. But we put in the bottom. If you don't read the chapter, there's the author notes. And we each wrote one. You could probably tell who wrote the military ones, but I wrote.
No, we both wrote both.
I don't know. They're kind of mixed. You're right, but there's the first section. It's like the often hidden struggle of mental health, and it's like what happened. Like, it's all of a sudden, Alberto's death suddenly makes everything like visible. Like, oh yeah, he gave me his tools. Oh, he had depression. He was taking pills. It's like all these facts start coming out, And it's like, where the hell was this last week? And it's because it's all hidden. All of this is hidden from surface level, and we don't look for it. It's
So I know
like
we
that
got-
wet.
we
It's
hid-
like that
we hide
freaking
it.
wet cardboard. Yeah, it's one, it's hidden, and two, we don't go looking for it. It's the worst thing. It's the worst of the worst. So if one, things are hidden, and two, we don't even look for it, nothing will ever happen. So in systems thinking, when that unfortunate thing happens, when Alberto dies, it's called emergence, and it just like emerges. Whoa, what is this?
Right. Where'd that come
It's
from?
shocking, and it shocks you into it's like a roof leak or breaker trips, those kind of things. Things emerge.
You
But-
lose the electrical
Things short out.
coordination drawings. They get
Drawings
lost
get
and scattered all
lost.
throughout the job site.
But all of a sudden, it's like, you know what? We should really get have a checklist for our electrical equipment before we try to energize it. That would be a really good idea. Like, that's a freaking good idea since forever.
Before the injury,
Yeah.
before the loss.
We were doing like energization checkdowns since like Henry, or what's his name, Mr. Edison.
Yeah.
Right.
Before he
Like,
turned on that first bulb.
yeah.
Yes.
like Ben Franklin flew the kite up there. He ran down. He's like, okay, well, we need to make sure it's grounded, right? So,
Yes.
but it's hidden and we don't look for it. So this chapter underscores the importance of that. It says you have to recognize the signs. So if you're not, this is my struggle now. Now that I've gone through therapy and I know the signs, I know my own struggles, I know my own symptoms, I can know my own triggers. I'm not having overcome them. I still struggle with it. Spoiler alert to anybody who's going down the therapy path. You never overcome it, but you can now are given tools and techniques to live. That's all you're given. But
Deal with
now
it.
that I have these tools and techniques to cope with them, I can share those with other people. So like we give one to the breathing technique in Afghanistan. It works in North Dakota. It works
I
the
use
same.
it all the time. It works here for sure.
It works in Texas. It can work in Switzerland. Breathing is a human activity. So you have to think, you have to recognize those signs. So if you come upon somebody hiding and they look a little misty-eyed and you ignore them, that's on you. It's on you. So everybody's like, what do we do? How do we fix this problem? We have these ERPs. We have this website now. We have this texting solution. Freaking great. That is awesome. The next thing we do is every single day, you have to be on alert for people. And so we give an example, that last section. It's fleeting. You don't really see it, but they're in a meeting and there's this old fox, the silver fox, Carl. We all got one. And notice we made him a plumber, by the way. But
Yeah, now we're talking, baby.
the silver fox, he's always got a wisecrack in the sub meeting or in the trade foreman meeting. And there's always at least one. I always appreciate it. Keeps a little. I'd be over there like all uptight and trying to get people back on tact. Everybody's like, "We're doing full pin welds over here, Thomas." Like, no, tact time. Never mind. Okay, so, but you have to. It's like a really fleeting moment that he's like, "You're not being your normal self, Carl." And no one else in the room was looking for it. Only Emilio saw it. But in that second, he's like, "Are you okay?" And the first thing that Carl said was, he gave him conflict. He's like, "What do you want? What do you want?"
You want
right?
from
He
me?
pushed
What
back.
are you looking for? Yep.
Right. And he's like, "You know what? Things are not okay." And that just cracked the door open just enough.
Well,
and if you
he
crack the
says it
door
there.
open enough, yeah, go ahead.
He says it there. He says, "I've recently lost someone that died by suicide, and I'm not willing to stand by and watch anybody else do it." anybody else suffer if I have a way to help them. And that's what we've got to do. That's who we have to be.
Yes.
We are responsible for each other. We have to talk to each other. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, more than okay, it's freaking necessary, right?
Yeah.
But I love that you say it's okay, because for too long we've treated it in the industry like it's not okay. Like it is less than to say I need help. Like you are less than, or I am less than if I say I'm hurting, but not on the outside, right? Like it is absolutely okay, and it's uncomfortable, and it's going to take practice and it's going to take reps, but we got to do that. And what I think what you pointed out, Thomas, is like we got to be vigilant in looking for it and trying to identify it.
Because
And
it's hidden.
so I was looking at this section here. If you don't mind, you mind if I read the first bullet?
No. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is at the end of the chapter, and folks, I just dropped a link to the construction suicide, which is the first story in the book that Brian and Thomas are co-authoring. And at the end of it, there's some actionable takeaways. So the first one is,
And there'll be that in every chapter, by the way.
oh, you have these kind of summary action points at the end. Love it. Hell yes. And so the often hidden struggle of mental health. Alberto's suicide highlights the often hidden nature of mental health struggles, particularly in male-dominated industries like construction. The fact that Alberto was well-liked and seemingly happy emphasizes that depression and suicidal thoughts can affect anyone, regardless of status or appearance. The chapter underscores the importance of recognizing the signs of mental distress and seeking help. Recognizing the signs of mental distress and seeking help. Have you seen mental health impacts to you or your coworkers? How did that impact the atmosphere on those particular projects? So I'm going to stop there and come back to you guys. I mean, y'all had the foresight to include that in there. So why? Amazing, freaking amazing. And why?
Which part? The questions or the first part, or all of it?
The all of it, the bullet points at the end.
We didn't want this to just be a story.
Okay.
We wanted this to be something that they could take and use immediately. And the resources we have down there, when it gets to the book, there'd be a website where those resources, like if our intention is that to be a poster eventually, right? So that could be put up in anybody's trailer office with all those numbers on it so that people can have it. It's a resource. So there'd be a website where when people own the book, they can go to the website, get the resources that aren't, that you can't get from a physical book or whatever. So yeah, all of that will turn into something a little bit different than that once we publish the book. And we're not sure exactly what that'll look like yet. So, but yeah, that's the intent there with that stuff. And then our thought was to have the workbook included. A lot of people put the book out and then have the workbook out, put out the workbook after, but we ask those questions on each of those bullet points up above there, so that our feeling is we want it to be included with the book itself.
Yeah.
And there's a barrier of entry to study action groups or teams or anything that to do kind of any kind of, you read and then you do a reflection and then you do kind of a group study. It takes training. Yes. And it takes a lot of listen, if you're a foreman, you don't have time to do that, to do all that training. And I was driving over here to my, I'm traveling right now for work and I'm away from home. And you think about a lot of our just like the foreman journey people, and then just kind of frontline workers. Almost half of them are super commuters. And a super commuter is defined as 2 hours or more each way, half of them. And so remember last time we talked, like that's a part-time job just to get your body from work and back home. So if you work 10 hours a day and then you were to drive 2 hours, that's 14 hours. And then, oh, by the way, Thomas gave me a pamphlet that said I need 8 hours of sleep. When are you working out?
Right.
When are you talking to your family? When are you helping them with their homework? When
are you eating something that you don't have to get out of a convenience store?
Yeah.
Yep.
No. So what, and it's all good. And all of us have experienced this, that you want to get into these healthy cycles and habits of wellness. You want to, like, I'll get all obsessed with it and be like, I'll get all gear and I'll buy creatine and protein powder and like write out the plan and then just gets crushed because I'm putting in 12-hour days and I got a 2-hour commute and I'm just come home and I pass out.
Yep.
Right. And the only thing that I can put me to sleep is a couple rounds of amber liquid, right? Like bourbon or something. And that's all you get. Like that's the best outcome. So what I'm trying to say there is like, you got to overcome that. So what we're doing is like, we got to make it super easy, and not in a dumbed down way, but like give people an opportunity to say, do some reflection and just put it right at the end of the chapter that you just read and make it like reflection and just link it back and like give people some grace right there and possibly some paper space that you can fill it in. I think that's important.
I like that. We know that there's more that we're not pointing out too, and that's okay too. We hope that people will find more than just what we write in there as well. I mean, it's not meant to be all inclusive.
Yeah. So Thomas, you something you said kind of tickled my ear here, and it's interesting. Like as I advanced in my career, I all of a sudden had more time or bandwidth to do personal development and professional development and these sorts of things. So my point there is, when I was a foreman, I didn't have the damn time to do that. There was no freaking way I was going to do it out on the job site, because that's not what I got paid to do. You got to go install stuff. Nobody wanted to talk and think like, and I know that's largely the case even today. Now, I want to give credit to, because I know y'all have seen this or worked with organizations that do this, to the leaders on job sites out there that create opportunities, create space on site during working hours to do book studies, not just with the GC construction management team, with the foreman as well, right? Like as a team. And so folks out there in the Omniverse, if you're doing that, I got all kinds of love for y'all, because it's really important. Because I hate to say it, but even the trade, the subcontractors, their bosses, they're not really doing anything to help their people develop and learn and grow. They're not. I mean, that's part of the reason why you're putting this book together. And so the trades out, the superintendents, the project managers, the project executives that are creating the conditions for people, for everybody on their project to learn and grow, I want to give y'all a shout out. And for the rest of y'all that ain't doing that, you just need to know you're a scrub. And that's not Thomas or Brian saying that. That's me saying that.
I'll tell you,
I back you up 100% on that one. Scrub.
Listen, I work for ENR number 5 or 6 or whatever. We're doing that right now. This is how we work now. So, and we the more we do it, we train our foremen, we train apprentices. We're getting into high schools. You just can't get enough of it. And it's like, we get into colleges and it's like, these, and not your traditional engineering degrees, like finding people. We found one of our field like surveyors, we found him at Starbucks.
Nice. Yes.
So like you can be non-traditional and get yourself into our business. It's so much more open, and there's many more opportunities than perhaps even 5 years ago. So, and that's just how
it's
we're
not
working.
my quote. It's not my quote, but I loved hearing it. It's, in construction, we have a place for everybody.
Everyone.
And we really do.
Man.
We really do. I mean, if there's anything about construction, unless they're female or gay or, I mean, excuse me, sorry. But, we really do have a place for just about every layer of society. But, this suicide thing affects every facet of construction, from pre-apprentices all the way through CEOs. And it's even across the board, and it's not just at one part of it, it's all of it. And it's part of our industry. And yeah, I feel like we've started a lot of the lean stuff that we talk about. I feel like it started at the wrong end of the equation, when we should have been back at the Gemba, and we haven't really ever gotten it very good, very well to the Gemba, with all the lean stuff, where the work happens, where all the people are doing the work.
Yeah.
And I feel like that this is our opportunity to do something about that. Not that anything about this book is lean. It's not. We don't even mention lean in it at all, on purpose, because these are universal things, just like lean is. And that's what we're about.
One thing, so I was talking about like where do you find the time? So Jesse, you were like, give space. So what we do, if you actually like implement some of these ideas or workflows or whatever it is, you actually give yourself space to enjoy your work, or work more ergonomically, or leave early. And it's like, it's all like, yeah, this is really like hypothetical, Thomas. Yes, it is very hypothetical on the surface. And it takes a lot of micro steps, and it takes a whole bunch of reinforcing, and it takes a long time. It's like any other journey that you're going to go down. It takes repetitive effort, and there's ups and downs to it. But you have to go down that path and then adjust and adapt to it along the way.
Yes.
And that once you like give yourself space, now it's like I now have an opportunity to plan my work better. So like one thing, when I was a surveyor, and I was like crazy, but I was a surveyor, and I was like, I have this device that could count things. I could count things. I can do layout, but I can also count things very accurately, either in measurement or just in quantity. And then so what I would do, I would go and count things, and then say, okay, if there's supposed to be, and I would know if there's 20 things that I'm supposed to count, and I only counted 10, then there could be a issue with production. And I would share that information with people around me, be like, hey, we only have 10 of these things, and these things could be embeds, it could be whatever things the surveyors count. And then all of a sudden that gave me space to be like, Thomas, you're not just the layout guy anymore. You can like plan. You're no longer the guy on the rod anymore. Let's get you into the CAD room and start like get you into things. And all of a sudden you've just elevated yourself.
Yep.
By doing something you're already doing anyways, but you just have to like just think a little bit beyond just your day-to-day work. And the only way for you to actually do that is you have to have the space and the capacity to do it. If you're just getting your teeth kicked in all day, you won't do it. If you're in a poorly designed system like drilling overhead all day, don't expect anyone to have an innovative thought while their arm is over their heart all day long, because it's really not ergonomic. What I'm trying to say.
If people are working on their hands and knees, you're never going to work faster than a crawl. You never are. You can't. It's physically impossible to go faster than a crawl if you're working on your hands and knees. It's just you're not going to go faster. And it's starting to happen. I'm starting to see some. The design industry has some stake in this too. We have to design the work better.
Yes.
You know, the work has to be designed better so that more people can do it, so that we can get more women doing the work. Critical. I don't want to sound facetious here, but our suicide numbers will go down if we just get more women into our industry. It's a terrible way to say it, but it's the truth. Women don't kill themselves in nearly as high numbers as men do, and this is a male-dominated industry, and that's to our detriment often.
Yeah.
And I think the level of care goes up. So you have like, hey, do we really need all these like terrible snacks and energy drinks and stuff? Like, let's actually bring in some decent food. That needs to happen. How do you need a diverse set of values in everything that we do. So yes, we need definitely more diversity, no matter the gender or background. I think that's always a good thing. But
see, you had asked about the reason that we wrote this, and I went back and read something from our I'll call it our Pinterest board, but it's on Mural, where we have a lot of our ideas. As we look at the construction crew and a fire team side by side, we can begin to see some ways in which the structure and the work itself are very similar. A major similarity, and much of what drives people to do this work, is that in both professions, value is created by the smallest units who are closest to the work. The greatest impact we can have on work is at this level. This is where transformation happens. That being the case, we must figure out how we can impact these folks' lives in positive ways, as well as increase their capacity for leadership. Bad leadership at the executive level costs companies an estimated $550 billion annually. Bad leadership is also pervasive in that bad leaders tend to surround themselves with other bad leaders. It becomes a compounding problem and ruins company culture and ultimately people's lives. If the cost of bad executive leadership is this high, how much more do you think it costs us to have bad leadership at the point where value is created?
Yeah, so I think the number is always going to be bigger at the executive level. But I agree with the premise in that there's a lot of wasted dollars, lost money. And if that's the only language you speak, it's going to be clear. I'm all about making it better for the men and women that are doing the work, period. But if the only language you speak is dollars, Brian, what you just said is 100% dead on. Like, you need to think about that because there are tons and tons of dollars left on the table. So you posted the link today. What should the audience out there that now has got a little taste of what's to come, like, should they expect a link to a story every 3 days? Like, what's the cycle time on these chapters? And is there a target for release for the book? Like, at least in the ballpark, más o menos.
Oh yeah. Probably first part of next year, probably for the book itself. We've got probably 3 chapters done with 2 more not too far away, and probably 5 more to write, 4 more to write. I think we're going to probably do 10 chapters somewhere in there.
Nice. Okay.
May not be the only book ever, but about this guy.
Yeah. So there's a few more. I mean, I've got some whispers from Thomas. Thomas, you got a bunch of irons in the fire around content to help the industry get better.
Yeah. This just feeds my creative need.
Yeah. You got a lot to offer, both of y'all do. And I mean, I'm loving the fact that we're doing that. I got to be a part of just talking about what y'all are doing.
I will say this, like, part of the like research for the book has been my own like construction projects. And like the development of process improvement like that we introduced, like so these experiments have been run and adjusted. So like these aren't like just like wild ideas that have like
Right.
we've actually experimented, gotten feedback on, and implemented some of them. And so a lot of the ideas come from those Foreman level. So these aren't like just wild ideas that or like stories from our past. They're relevant. So yeah. So what to look forward to is, geez, probably some like after the book drops. I mean, Brian here, he has a whole business around coaching. Man, I'd sure love to be a part of that. In any way I can, in any bigger realm where I can find the time, if I can like make space in my own like full-time job. Speaking of which, it becomes more and more all consuming, it feels like. But like how do I feed my own, like how do I become more sane and stay level? It's right here. It's to share and to give back, and to tell people that they're not alone, that there's people in our industry who are senior leaders and are growing leaders and who are very senior leaders who feel exactly the same way you do, or maybe they did 20 years ago, and they were able through seeking help, through therapy, through whatever it is, through grit, coaching, right? Some of it positive, some of it like lesson learned, that they were able to overcome. And those stories, most of those stories aren't ever told, and that's not okay anymore. We need to tell those stories now, because why? 56 out of 100,000 people need to hear it every single day, every single year, until that's a zero. And then we're not done. Then we got to go over to the military and start talking to veterans.
So
Yeah.
we lose about 1,000 a year to construction accidents, 1,000 people a year to construction accidents. We lose 4 to 5 times that to suicide. 4 to 5 times.
Yep.
Just in construction.
Yep.
Number one in opioid overdose deaths. Now those numbers are not dependent on each other or mixed. I mean, they don't include either of the other ones together. Some of those opioid deaths are probably suicides, and some of them aren't, I'm sure. But yeah, the ones that are suicide, that we know for sure, 4 to 5,000 of those a year. And then opioid deaths, probably another, on top of that, another 4 to 5,000 on top of that, like 8 or 9,000 of opioid deaths, because it's 176, not 55 for our opioid deaths every year. It's 176 opioid deaths. That's why the work has got to be changed. It's hard on the people who do it. It hurts them physically and mentally, and we've got to change it. It's got to get fixed.
Just trailing behind that, we have cardiovascular disease, right? That could be related to stress and
divorces, heart attacks.
Yes, and poor sleep and nutrition habits, all prevalent, all not even prevalent, like encouraged in our industry.
Yep.
Yes. So all of those things, that's why I would like the last author note before you go to the resources. It's the catalyst of change. Like, what will it take? What will drive us to take? And if you've ever been, I've been on way too many, like on a project with a fatality.
Yeah.
It's like a black cloud. It just hangs over. Then that's like an accident, like somebody, had an accident and died on the job site because of an accident. It hangs over, and you never get over it. It's in the news. Lawsuits involved. Like there's a whole thing there, And then then you see their name on meeting notes, or perhaps a payroll comes through the next week. And it's like, what will it take? What will it take?
Right.
And it's like, we have to change. And so around worker safety, we've done a whole bunch of change. We've made regulation. We've added guardrails and fall protection. And like, we have these cool helmets now with chin straps. And I got one that's got like the visor that flips down. It's got all kinds of gizmos and gadgets on it. We can do it. It's been done.
Yes.
And also like male stigma issues. Remember, Jesse?
Oh yeah.
Like, we've confronted this with medicine. Male erectile dysfunction, Viagra was developed on accident, but marketed towards a very taboo subject. And now men and their most probably private like issue that you could have as a man, you're more likely now than maybe 25 years ago to go have a conversation with your doctor about that issue. We have to do the exact same thing with this issue. It is here and now. And I won't rest myself personally. I know the people above me and below me are on the same page, and there are many, many, many more of us here to do so. And how do we do that? If this is a hidden problem, we have to go look for it. We have to go look for it. Yes. And we're going to give people all kinds of, in this publication, and I know there'll be many more in this 2024 stand down week, that there's all kinds of resources out there. And it's like, we have to use these resources, share them. And then like next week, do it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've done, Jesse, is I'm a mental health first aid instructor. I'm a lean coach, but this means probably more to my heart than anything else I get to do. So, I get to go and teach people about how to see when things, when things are going wrong with, see what to do with people in distress, and see what to do with people in crisis, and how to have that conversation and how to recognize it and all that. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, folks out there in the Omniverse, I want to remind you the link to this chapter, A Construction Suicide. That's the name of this story. The links are in the chat. I've got on the screen here the list of resources, first aid or mental health resources. We got the suicide crisis line, the crisis text line, the man therapy, which is pretty interesting to me, mental health first aid, some resources for you or for the folks out on your job site. Share that with them. Share the link to the story. You can have a quick study action team conversation around this story, and I'd recommend that. I don't know if y'all are like putting that out there, but the article, it's not an article, but the story's not enormously long. There's a lot that goes on in that conversation, in the story, that I would be interested for people to have a conversation around that. Have everybody read the thing, have a conversation about what you took away, what you felt, what you got from it, what it made you think of. And like Thomas said, like, let's make it a just normal part of conversation. You know
what, Jesse?
Yeah.
Me and Thomas, I'm gonna put us both out there right now and say that we will do that study action team for this. If anybody's interested, we'll figure that out in the next couple of weeks and put it out for everybody to do, probably sometime in early October.
Y'all heard them. October 1st at 9 a.m. They're hosting a study action team on this story number 1.
If anybody wants to do it, I'm game.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody, I don't care. You can be an astronaut. Actually, I think some astronauts right now up in the space station
probably don't have anything to do, right?
They got some spare time. Yeah.
What time zone are they in? Awesome, guys. Closing thoughts before we sign off.
I wanted to.
I'll put it out on LinkedIn.
Okay, I have a final thought.
Come on.
If we're gonna wrap up, I was thinking about this. I have a long commute twice a week. I take all my commutes and lump them into one. But I was reflecting on this, and it's definitely in this entirety of our novel here. But it really goes into, if you think about what make human beings survive. What makes human beings survive? That's water, nutrition, oxygen, right? If you had those things, you could breathe, you could eat, and then also you had to sleep. If you
Shelter.
are missing any of those, you won't live very long. You won't live long, right? Those are the things that you need just to survive. Humans, just turn on the news if you think that humans aren't very resilient. Human beings are freaking resilient, right?
Yeah.
And those are the most basic things. But to make humans thrive, sunlight, movement, humor, right?
Purpose,
mastery, love, right? So what I'm kind of considering here is, when I was at my lowest, kind of when you start considering, it's like, how would somebody even consider suicide? Like, you can't even, if you're of sound mind, you don't even consider it. Like, but what happens when you start to lose the things that that help someone thrive, like even sunlight. Like, I worked in a facility that had no windows, and we were inside of a factory all day, and we didn't have any sunlight. Like, I was almost at my lowest just because I couldn't go outside. And it's like, you're not conscious of that then.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is, the barrier of entry into those bad outcomes starts to happen when your thrive levels decrease. And the barrier of entry into really bad outcomes is like drops immediately if any of your survive empty, right? So if you think about some of our workers, some of those things that I talked about, air and water and nutrition and sleep, they have to trade off those things to go to work. Just think about, like, air quality, like they're in a dusty, damp, like look at that Connex. This is not good air quality in there, like probably all kinds of mold. And there is an office in the back of that thing, right? Someone probably sits in there and fills out paperwork. And so if you don't have an opportunity to either get the survive things, or say, I don't have access to the things I need just to survive.
Yep.
The outcomes get bad really fast. And what I want people to say is that the things that you want to start to prioritize are the survives, and then immediately go to the things that make you thrive. And if you're not getting those, leave, quit your job, and go somewhere else immediately. There is you will find work anywhere else. You will find work tomorrow. There is no construction job that you cannot do anywhere else. You might take a few weeks to go get, but you will go find that. Please vote with your feet.
Yes.
Vote with your feet. Do not accept any longer poor ergonomic situations. In the United States, you're protected by law. And I can't stress that enough. And I've done that now that my thrive level is higher, is because I made those choices. That it's more important for me to be alive than it is to make all kinds of crazy money. And I want people to really know that. And a lot of that is poured into this chapter. So that's all I got. I want people to know that.
Thank you, Thomas. Brian, you good?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, folks, look, we got some love from Spencer. He says, Thomas and Brian, you are awesome. Miss Jennifer
And Jesse.
Lacy. Oh, yeah, and me. But I kind of know that already. Jennifer says, thank you for sharing these tough examples. We had Stephanie Brown, Cody, Lance, Ernest, all of y'all. Appreciate y'all jumping in and supporting us. Read the chapter. Help me remind Brian and Thomas about the study action team on this story in October. So they got a few weeks.
We meet tomorrow. Thomas and I meet tomorrow. So we'll figure out a date tomorrow and start figuring out when that's going to come out.
Boom. I love it. And then
Let's
they're
do
going to
it.
have a series of study action teams as they release a story on the build-up to the official release launch of the book. That's what I heard. Maybe I misheard that. But folks, appreciate your support. Please support my brothers up here, Brian and Thomas. They're doing an amazing thing. It's a huge contribution to our industry. And thank you for joining in this conversation about suicide, about the reality of what we're dealing with. And we'll see y'all again soon. Peace.
Yeah.
Now we